Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of FFS, where we discuss all thoughts that keep us up at night and make us giggle during the day. I'm Vishrita and I'm logging in from Houston, Texas.
I'm Astha and I'm logging in from Mumbai, India. So let's get all caught up for friendship's sake.
So, Asta, what's been up? How's the week?
The week has been fine. It's just, I think I'm finally getting out of the let's get married, let's move, let's settle down sort of phase. And I want to get back into work, into figuring out what's next for me. And every time that, I mean, the last time also that my priorities shifted from like work to the wedding and to my personal life, there was this period of a lot of uncertainty and a lot of adjustment where I didn't really know what I was doing, in all honesty. And that period's back. No, yay, it's not fun, but it's again that period of slightly the discomfort of not exactly knowing what's next and being it's not like I'm out of my comfort zone. There is no zone at all. It's like your entire reality changes, right? The place that you're in, the people that you're around, every time. And I don't think it's just marriage and things like that. But when we moved to Evanston,
Yeah.
right, our reality changed.
Yeah.
Everything from the places we shopped to the food we ate to the people we hung out with changed. Our priorities were solely doing well in school, doing well on those every Friday night assignments, um, and how we spent weekends changed just because our priorities changed. And like you said, any transition it your reality changes, and that's tough because it makes it unknown and not necessarily something you know how to navigate.
Yeah, and on those lines, I think there's a lot of pressure also, right? Because I feel like until we were in grad school, like I would probably just only compare myself to other grad school kids and think of,
Yeah,
okay, what are they doing? How can like I find better opportunities and make the best use of the time here? But
yeah.
now every single person who has a career is someone
Or
I
not.
yeah or not is someone that it's not like you're like envious or jealous, but you're just like, okay, is there
You
something I can
question.
learn from here? Is there
Yeah.
something that I'm not doing right? It's always making you a little insecure and
Yeah.
is constantly pushing into feeling existential. I think that's pretty
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And I think it's very easy to shift into a space of being negative about it.
Mm.
It's very easy to shift into a space of jealousy, like you said, instead of looking at it as an opportunity to learn. Okay, what is this person doing right that I can possibly, copy or inculcate into my own life? It's very easy to get bitter about it. So it takes a lot of effort to remain positive and remain conscious of the fact that that person is on their own journey, and maybe there's something to learn from there, but you are on your own journey, and that has its own timeline, its own milestones, and its own challenges as well.
And I think like something that I struggle with is, like just figuring, because there are so many people with so many goals and so many different ways of how they measure success, just figuring what will work for you, right? Because
Yeah,
there is a very stereotypical set of milestones that the society has laid out for you. But now constantly you're looking at people who, some people want to grow inside the corporate life, grow that ladder,
yeah,
get to a better position. And there are some people who, prioritize a side hustle. And there are some people who say, okay, now, like I have friends who are like, now I'm going to focus on my family in my 20s, get married, have kids, and maybe like I'll start
yeah,
working a little later and then I don't have to take a break. So all of these seem like great options. Just figuring
yes,
what would work for you, what aligns with your priorities, it's pretty hard, to figure.
absolutely. I think I had a conversation with a friend a few months ago, and we were talking about what ambition looks like. Right now, this friend of mine is um, has job hopped like a crazy person. I mean, good for him, of course. He really is that let's hustle. This the 20s is to work hard. He's that kind. That's his definition of um, success in 20s. Uh, and another friend of ours does not share the same definition of success or even ambition.
Mm.
I won't say that this friend is not ambitious at all, but her ambition lies in having a work life balance per se, where she gets to spend time at home with her parents, where she gets to have some time to herself, to take care of herself. Um, and that conversation got so heated, and just we both got so irritated with each other because we couldn't convey the simple thing that ambition looks different for different people.
Mhm.
And it's something that's taken me time to realize, especially over the last year, where I was focusing on, like you said, the wedding, moving, spending time with my parents, while I had the chance, spending time with my friends. And for example, you were focusing on networking events and, figuring your focus was a lot more on your career, uh, because that's where you were, right?
Mhm.
And it constantly made me feel like, oh my God, am I not doing enough? Like, I'm going to get left behind. What am I? And sometimes it just makes it made my um conundrum of which lehenga color to wear seem extremely vain and futile. And I was like, you got a degree from Northwestern and you are spending your first year out of graduation doing this? What is wrong with you? And um, there was also a lot of shift of the kind of people that I hung out with, what I did when I hung out with them. There was no more late night parties, there was no more sleepovers, there was no more, like just spending all day doing nothing. And there were a lot more of early dinners, um, really long calls. Even we had so many calls where I would just call and cry or vent or rant about something. So everything, the conversations changed, the activities changed, um, and there was pressure internally that you're not doing enough for your career, and externally that you're getting married and there's an XXX expectation from you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you're right in the sense that these things always feel weird because you knew you were getting married. You've always wanted
For
to.
donkey's years.
Yeah, but the thing is, I just feel like and also I guess social media plays a big part of it too. Of
Yeah,
course, in our case, you knew what I was doing, but then just making that hustle culture and working and making money and growing the corporate ladder sort of be the centerpiece of people's lives
yeah,
makes you question your reality for sure. And I think for you also the other piece was moving back.
yeah,
Because that's a big shift in what you do.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think one more thing that comes into picture when you talk about this is how people define success from the lens of money, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times, as much as when it came to my job search, like one thing I had to keep in mind was I wanted to shift industries. I wanted to make sure because I've always wanted to be in this industry that I'm in right now. And I was, in tech before, and I wanted to kind of move out of tech and explore marketing in other
Yeah,
industries.
yeah.
So, as we all know, like big tech pays really well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, one thing was constantly to keep in mind that now when I look for jobs, pay cannot be the parameter. I cannot constantly keep comparing to what would this exact role in a tech company pay. Because I have to choose between like now, yeah, maybe down the lane I can grow in this industry and like make the same amount of money. But when it comes to switching, of course, I need to prioritize switching and getting the right job over money.
Yeah.
And I'd always questioned it. I was like, does that mean I'm not growing in my career? Am I making the wrong decision because I'm not choosing the job that pays the best? So it's difficult. And as much as you tend to keep telling yourself once in a while that you know you're going behind your passion, or you're going behind what you really want, it's really hard when people talk money, when people talk numbers. It makes you question
Yeah,
everything you ever told yourself about your passion.
absolutely. You know, people say, oh, money can't buy happiness. Yes, maybe money can't buy happiness in its purest sense, but in today's day and age, I think it's the root cause of all evil. You have money, you might not be happy. You don't have money, you will be unhappy. You
Yeah.
will lack certain things that make you happy, right? Um, and like when I chose to work, I love working in startups. I think it's so fun. You're on the ground, you're doing everything. I have
Mm.
packed orders, I have made investor pitch decks, I've gone to conferences, I've also looked at basic graphic designing and manufacturing, understood the kitchen. It's everything, right? But like you said, there isn't that much money.
Mm.
um and sometimes, because in a place like a startup, right, there's a lot of uncertainty. When you talk to other people, it's like a little jolt to your confidence.
Mm.
Not a boost, a jolt. And you're like, maybe I'm not doing this right, maybe I'm not doing that right. And that extends to beyond work. In this like 24 to 28, 30 type phase, I feel like there's not knowing could either be really exciting. Like you said, you want to switch industries, you want to go do something new, something fun and learn. But it also could be extremely intimidating, like m- getting married, live into a new family, not knowing what the family is actually going to be like, what living with them is going to be like. So the not knowing bit, and there's no between these. Unfortunately, there's no other way um there's no one parameter that says, okay, you're doing well,
Yeah.
except you internally feeling that,
Yeah.
which
And
is
I
again dependent on external things.
uncertainty bit that you bring about is very real, right? Like it's just sort of, I guess for me, there's this constant paradox in my head about, is the feeling of uncertainty cool because it's exciting, it's,
Yeah,
there's something that you don't know and there's a possibility that you can explore it, or it's really
yeah,
anxiety driving, right?
yeah,
So I and I think this age of 25 to 30 that you, I guess, like for me, the way it seems is, until grad school, we had like everything I did before grad school and during grad school felt like, oh, I'm like learning new tools for my toolkit for
yeah,
everything that I'll do in the future. And
yeah,
now it's hard for me to believe that this is the future. This is the future I've been prepping and planning for the last
yeah,
26 years of my life. And
yeah,
now, if this is the future, then can I still keep learning and exploring new things, or is it time I
yeah,
decide and stick to a path? When you talk to older people, they're always going to be like, you're still so young, you're a baby. But then you see a
yeah,
22-year-old influencer doing it well, you're just like, maybe that should have been my career path. So I think it's,
yeah.
yeah, that is a paradox that.
The the basic difference between where you thought you will be
Mhm.
at this age, at 26, 27, whatever, versus where you actually are, it could have surpassed it, it could have not. But even when I'm saying that question, versus where you are, or where you thought you'd be, the journey or the path in my head that I'm measuring is career.
Mm.
It it is, am I making enough money? Am I sustainable? Am I able to sort of, buy the things that I want to buy, gift the things that I want to gift? Fortunately or unfortunately, that's what's coming to my head. And every time I'm on social media and I see someone, I'm really into bread baking these days. I'm trying to figure out how to bake a sourdough. So every time I see someone on Instagram who's done it well, I'm like, oh, this person's successful. Then I will see somebody who's reading, like who'll post their 31st book of the year
Uh-huh.
or something like that. I'm like, wow, this person's also successful.
Mhm.
Then I'll see someone post something about how they got a promotion at work, and again I'll be like, oh, this person's successful. Then I'll see someone who is posting, this is something new I found today. I'm like, wow, this person's doing research, so great. Everything looks like success, but when I look at myself, I don't get the same feeling.
I think we don't give ourselves enough credit, right? And we've told us each other this a million times.
Yeah,
We feel very charitable when we're doing it for other people, but for ourselves, it's so hard. And in fact,
yeah,
I don't know if I told you this, but I created a brag doc. So I have
I
this,
love that. I think
yeah,
I understand what it means, but I love it.
called brag doc because I did the cliched vision boarding when the year started, and
Yeah,
I've not printed it out. It's still in my computer. So I mean, it's not that I only write down things in my vision boards come to life, but anything that momentarily I feel like, okay, I've done this. I'm like done with it. It could be small things like, oh, like
yeah,
figuring taxes or starting to invest or starting a high yield savings account, which I've been not doing for a really long time. So I think like even
yeah,
small wins like that, because all of these things could feel slightly intimidating to start, and it takes
yeah,
that little leap to get there and start that, and I want to give credit to myself for that. And
yeah,
another thing that I'm sort of realizing is that I live by myself, and I did not live in Houston for too long before. I moved pretty recently. So it's not like I'm sharing my everydays with someone here, right? I don't have a roommate. I don't have a really close group of friends in this city. So I realized that, sometimes like I need to give myself that like credit and sort of
be
something
your
I
own
go
cheerleader.
back. Yeah, that I have you guys, but still. Um but like even like just to go back and see this is all that I've done this
Yeah,
month or this year or something like that. Like a
yeah,
small thing was I realized after moving to Houston, the number of pictures I have, just the number of photos I have are very little. Because I'm just by myself. It's not like I'm constantly clicking.
yeah.
But I started to.
Hmm.
Like I started clicking pictures of random things. I started clicking pictures.
You can send them to me.
Yeah. So I
I
don't
will
know if
appreciate.
you noticed, but I do that more often now. I wasn't
Yeah,
someone who
yeah,
usually take pictures and send. Now I do
yeah,
that in like, group. Um, because I'm just like, I guess like, it's fine. I'm sharing it with my friends. And it's also something I can go back to my Google Photos and look at it and be like, oh, these are all the different things I've done
yeah,
because I'm
yeah,
enjoying them. It's just
yeah.
a way for me to keep track. But
And
yeah, Bragg Doc has really like, I might not even go back and look at it, but even just writing it gives me
absolutely,
that it's done. Yeah.
I'm sure, I'm sure because I'm gonna try that, but I don't think it's ever going to be, and I don't think at least not in the near future, going to reach a point in my life where I'm like, okay, this is enough. I have achieved a lot for the year. It's not a sales target where I'm like, okay, surpass sales target by 38% or 55%, and I can chill for the rest of the year. That's not going to happen because that's not all. Even if you've gotten a promotion this year, you're like, okay, next year want more than this. If you've like me and my best friend both got married this year, we're like, okay, we have the next 2 3 years, and then we have to think about if we want to start a family. So let's do everything. So you're constantly chasing something big, and you're constantly looking forward to the next big thing, and that is very exhausting. So doing something like a brag doc where you celebrate the smaller moments, the smaller wins, the everyday wins, like you said, can be very motivating to keep going for the bigger fish.
Yeah. And also, I feel like a lot of the things that you want today, and the minute you achieve it, doesn't feel big enough, right?
Yeah.
But I remember like dying to get a job in US for like 3 months straight. And the day I got the offer letter, I was just like, okay, cool. Now I have to move. How do I go about it? I forgot the fact that I was waiting for it. I finally got it. Like it just didn't feel big enough. I'm just like, was I thinking I wouldn't get a job? No. So then now I got it. Like, why do I need to celebrate it? Like that's how
Yeah.
that's how I felt like when I was graduating. I'm like, I never thought I'd fail, but that's so dumb, right? The day was to celebrate everything that I, endured over that period. It could be
Yeah.
moving, it could be leaving your family behind, it could just be all the crazy assignments and all-nighters we pulled. So I think doing this brag doc kind of helps me understand that this is something I wanted. You know that
Yeah.
I've seen an Instagram post where it says, like, wait, sit down and think of, what you wanted a year ago and if you have it today.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do, but we never
Yeah.
think back. We're always thinking,
Yeah.
what do we want today? So I think
Yeah.
that's something this doc has really helped me with.
Yeah. I one of the things that I've sort of started doing, or a habit that I'm trying to cultivate, is every time I feel like that I'm not successful enough in the way that I define success, I sit and write down three things that have gone well for me,
Mm.
or that I'm grateful for. And it just makes self acceptance that much easier.
Yeah.
I've also consciously started, I used to do, if I'm meeting you for a coffee after a really long time, I'll post a picture of you with the coffee with like a cute caption. And these days, I'm finding myself refraining from doing that, because I'm like, who needs to see this?
Mm-hmm.
I need to live it. That's what matters. Because because every time I look at Instagram, more often than not, I'm just left feeling not good.
Mm.
Sometimes inspired, sometimes motivated. One of times I'll see something that's entertaining, but a lot of times I'm left feeling not enough. So this is my little way to get out of the trap, to stop chasing the bigger things, and to just enjoy what I'm doing in everyday life. And the brag doc is another thing I'm going to try to start.
For sure.
Um, but since you mentioned the brag doc, which is for the smaller everyday realities, what do you think of the concept of a bucket list?
I think for me, in fact, like to go deeper, like the brag doc itself, right? It started off as a way for me to keep track of work at with my job, right? Because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, like I need to know what all I've done to be able to talk during reviews and things like that. And then I was like, why not make it a life thing? And that's how it became. So I think a big chunk of the bucket list part of it was when like this was a question I had when I started this whole process of vision boarding, brag docking, and all that. I was like, so how do you sort of, give your vision enough space between the big things like that you want, more bucket listy things like I want to do a trip to New Zealand, I want to be in Masai Mara and do that safari, which are more like I want to do this in life kind of thing. But for me, I'm not even thinking about life. When I say life, I'm thinking, okay, next 2 3 years. So
Yeah.
yeah, there, there are like more things that I guess like are long term, like I want to take this career path, things like that. And there are things which like are more habit building, like I want to work out this many times a week and things like that. So I think I tried to balance these different things out, right? I will not say I don't have a bucket list, or I don't have big one time in life things to do. But the one thing that I'm trying to do right now is give enough importance to building habits. So
Yeah.
I'm starting to come, because I remember like even 2 3 years ago, traveling meant the world to me. Like I'm like, every time I go to a trip, I feel like I achieved something, right? And it was also like, oh, I want to see the entire world. I want to go everywhere, be able to see everything. which I still feel I want to get to know as much of the world as I can. I want to experience new cultures.
Yeah.
But in the back of my head, I've also realized that maybe unless I'm a full-time traveler, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to
Yeah.
see, even if you're a full-time traveler, you're not going to end up seeing every corner of the world. And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
And that's gotten me to a place where I've started considering travel to be more of a, like whatever that brings gratification to me at that point, depending on what I need. It could be a
Yeah.
staycation, could be sometimes it could just be going to the same place you've gone with a bunch of friends because you just want to
Yeah.
be around those friends. So I think the
Yeah.
perception has changed, but I think for me, the biggest factor has been trying to balance out my vision between bucket listy things and more daily things that I'm doing to build a healthier, wealthier,
Yeah.
long-term life. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think after the 20s, when you're after the 25s, actually, when you don't, if you've decided that, okay, my academic career is over and now I'm going to just work and build my life, it's very important to build with intention. Whether that's a relationship where you're spending time getting to know the person, understand your differences, sort through them, etc. Or it's building your career where you decide that, okay, in 5 years, um, I want to be doing X kind of work, and then deciding, okay, do I need lateral growth for this? Do I need vertical growth for this? Should I be shifting? Should I be starting something of my own? And doing that in a way that you can sustain building without burning out is extremely important so that things like travel don't become an escape for you, but more of a, like you said, a gratification, something that, I'm like, it becomes a part of building with intention. And that includes everything from finances. I think learning how to manage your money is one of the things that really should be taught in schools. We don't talk about that enough. For some reason, finance is just not something we even often talk about with friends. So learning how to manage your finances from whoever. There are a bunch of wealth managers. I have a friend who had a wealth manager, and I figured that out like just last year, and I was shocked. I was like, "You do I have to have one? I thought wealthy people had it, and I'm not wealthy."
Yeah.
So understanding how to, like, that wealthy person didn't just get wealthy,
Yeah.
they built it,
Yeah.
right? um uh, Getting, like you said, getting your priorities right. What is it that you need right now, in the long term, in the medium term? And just having a vision of what your life should look like. I really admire that friend of mine who says, for me, ambition is not having to work 17-hour days or 14-hour days. For me, ambition is looks XYZ. I think that's great. Of course, there's the room to change your mind later, but just going into your own mind and understanding what truly makes you happy, and then sort of having a plan that this is how I'm going to get here, is, without, of course, without burning out, and giving yourself the room to also change that as and when needed, I think is the most challenging aspect of navigating your 20s.
Yeah, I'm really like envious, I would say, of that kind of self-awareness, right? To be able
Yeah.
to arrive at that. And like you said, there is always room to change. But I think for me, along these lines of investment and all of that, like I've really been craving a mentor. Like I guess a wealth
Yeah.
manager could be that with the finance space, right?
Possibly.
But someone you can really talk to who's not like 30 years older than you, but someone
Yeah.
who's, because it's also changed a lot what investment means, what are you saving up for, someone who really understands your goals. I mean, we talk so much about the fact that Gen Zs are different in a way that they're not investing in that many cars anymore. They don't really want to buy houses because, like, when I think about it, I personally feel like buying a house is basically getting stuck in one place, right?
Yeah.
And that I just don't know. I mean, obviously there are ways to
And I'm
buy.
polar opposite. To me, buying a house is having security and making sure that whatever goes wrong, you have a place to come back home to.
Yeah, no, you're right. For me, like it's just that of course there are ways, even if you want to move, you can rent it out and things like that. But
Yeah,
it personally feels like, is that the investment that I want right now? Right. So
yeah,
I think this is when I feel like it would be amazing to be able to talk to someone who understands these goals and guides me on how to invest.
yeah,
Right. And
absolutely.
that's something that like I've recently started doing. Yes, I've had LinkedIn connections. Yes, I've had friends who are slightly older than me who've helped me with
Yeah,
some things. But now suddenly,
yeah,
like, since last few months when I've been starting to look at investments deeply, I started feeling like, oh, I don't have someone in the US who's around my age, who's like done
yeah,
this that I can listen to. So
yeah.
I've been starting to look out for ways to actually like find a mentor. Where there are communities where you can go find them, which I wasn't aware.
Yeah, I didn't know what a like I didn't know what I always thought a mentor was just somebody that you watched from afar and took learnings from, until very recently, where I mean by very recently I mean 2 3 years, where I realized no, a mentor is an actively engaging relationship that you have with someone that understands your goals, your aspirations, your needs, um, and helps you achieve them, instead of simply, if I could be somebody who wants, I like my next goal could be, I want to buy myself a Louis Vuitton bag, and the person that who is my mentor for financial planning, or maybe a wealth manager even, if you want to go more professional about it, is somebody who would understand that and help me achieve it, instead of telling me no, that's a ridiculous goal, you don't need to have it, and you should just be investing to save a house. And that's generally what happens with family,
Mhm.
because they have a particular financial philosophy, they have a, I mean, philosophy of life in general. So to find somebody that you can go to, that is a safe space to ask these questions, it's a very new concept to me. Given that I'm 27, it's a very new concept to me.
No, I think that's true for a lot of people, right? Because I think it's also hard to be like when you've seen your parents be successful in their investment game and
Yeah,
they're able to like now give you a good life, then you
yeah,
tend to think that's possibly the right way to do it. And then
yeah.
sometimes it doesn't align with your priorities. So then again, you're just like, what do I do now?
Now
So,
what? Yeah.
um, but I
Do
think,
you see how much of everything that we've spoken about in terms of navigating that quarter life situation comes back to money?
yeah, and paradoxes. Like I think everything we've
Yeah,
said is how, like because there are like two things that you kind of agree with, but you're caught in the middle. And I think
yeah.
we've really
I'll
explored
tell you
this.
what. When I was when we were studying, or in even the last year when I was hustling to get balance work, balance the wedding, etc. I would see these reels on Instagram of people having slow mornings, sitting with their cup of coffee and just, taking those 5 10 minutes to themselves. And I'd wonder, wow, like this is what I am aiming for. And today I have that. I am not living the same kind of life. My life looks really different than it did 6 months ago. I have that. And now I'm looking at people traveling to work and everything and thinking, wow, this person's just, hustling and succeeding. I don't know if that person's doing well. I have no idea. But I achieved what I thought I wanted. Now I want the thing that I originally had.
Yeah, and I
It,
think
it
social media has a big part to play in that, right? Because
yeah,
I mean, this happens across different categories that we see influencers, but honestly, we're only seeing one side of these things. And more often than not, I feel like yes, there are more organic influencers who talk about their struggles too. But I think it's also important to sort of find your own tribe, find your own set of friends, mentors, professional relationships, whatever they are, who kind of also understand and see where you come from. Like, what is the
Yeah,
context of all these paradoxes and questions that you're having?
yeah,
And having that safe space obviously changes a lot of things when in self-doubt, especially.
absolutely. I saw this again, Instagram. I saw this person post on Instagram about how X some company, I don't remember the name, one of the employees ended up committing suicide or having some major issue and succumbing to it. And the first thing that the place of work did is disassociate themselves with this incident. And that went, and then the conclusion to that post was, when you are giving your everything to your work, sacrificing your health and your mental health and everything, remember that your work might be your identity, but you are not your work's identity.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I think you guys have been very, very, you all have been the sort of torch bearers of this announcement in my life. And just to make sure that you are treating your life also as a company you're building, having your own vision, your own mission, finding your purpose, constantly, reiterating, being your loudest cheerleader, finding your ambassadors, finding like your board of directors,
Mm-hmm.
this set of people that are with you, that align in your thinking and your values, that bring positive, um, that just bring positivity onto the table for you, is extremely, extremely important to thriving in the 20s without feeling, I mean, you'll still feel lost at times, but these people will be like your lighthouse.
Yeah, yeah. And I think something else that has also helped me, especially in the last few years, is having people who will give you constructive criticism, right? Because I
Oh my
think
God, yes.
sometimes it also takes someone to look at your life from a distance. Because
Yeah,
sometimes I also feel like when they're like your family, your parents, or your close friends, they just see you
yeah,
struggle, they see you go through something, and they're like, like, this is not good for you, or this is not
yeah,
something endure, because obviously it
not
comes from a good
objective.
place, um but it's hard for them to see the entire picture. So I think it's been really helpful for me to like have some of these friends slash mentors who I don't talk to every day, who I don't share every part of my life with, but I can go
Yeah,
back and be like, this is what's happening, like how would you approach it, or how can
yeah.
we sort of brainstorm, bounce
They are the
ideas.
experts that you bring in,
Yeah, yeah,
subject matter experts to
yeah.
for
So
life.
I agree. I think that's important. Again, it sort of goes back to our previous episode on knowing how the different connections in your life add
Yeah,
value to your life. Yeah,
yeah,
I think that's super important.
for sure. I think, and eventually just remember that a t- just your 20s are not the end of life. There are people who've completely revamped their lives at 50. B, you are on your own journey, and even if you make a mistake, there's always something to learn from it and to move on. And just accept yourself for who you are, and you'll be good.
Yeah. No,
Be
actually,
happy with yourself, and
that
that's all.
reminds me, we were at NASA earlier today, and I was with a friend, and so we were just like going around the NASA museum, looking at different exhibits and all that, and um there was this story of one of the astronauts who was on the Apollo mission, and there was a kid who was there who was like, oh, like, I want to be able to wear that suit, and I want to do this, and he was just like, like just talking about it from the lens of this is what I want to become.
Yeah.
And in like a couple, and my friend was not there when that was happening. And my friend walks towards me and she was like, dude, this is what I wanted to do. And look what I've done. And I felt that minute, I felt so old. Right. And for a second, I was like, can we not dream anymore? Like, is the quota of life where you can dream and think anything and everything is possible over. Um,
Mm, keep the
but
child in you alive, Wish.
yeah, but like your practical mind kicks in and you're like, okay, I've done this undergrad, I've done this postgrad, now I'm like doing
Yeah,
this in my career. Is it possible? Is it
yeah,
even practically possible, right? That said, there are people who've done crazy things from switching from being in the military to becoming a doctor to I was just reading about this RCB player this morning about how she was a football player and she was doing really well there. And now she's a cricketer and she's also excelling in here, right? So, I
yeah.
mean, of course, there are examples, but it's very rare. It's not common. But I think so. My friend and I were having this discussion,
I
and
don't think so. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think maybe not at that scale, but there are a lot of instances of rediscovering yourself, both personally and professionally. But I don't think we recognize and highlight and speak about them enough,
no, I
which we
agree.
should.
I think only when it's like this big does it come out, and
Yeah,
that could be a reason why. But I
yeah,
think it was really nice that my friend said, "Yeah, maybe I won't become an astronaut and actually like go into this space.
yeah.
It could happen, but like maybe I can do something in the field, right? Like I can start thinking about how to pivot, how to do something around aeronautics, or because this is what I
Or
want
it
to."
could just be a hobby you really enjoy. And
Exactly. So that's another thing that we actually spoke about, right? It doesn't have to be your career. Like it doesn't have to be the job that gives you money.
yeah,
And there are a lot of things that you like. For me personally, I've always loved biology as a subject. I've loved to study about like human evolution and things like that. So I studied that up until end of high school, and then I realized maybe this is not what I want my career to be. So I switched paths, took business, all of that. But even now, I go back whenever I see something, I want to read about it. I want to research about it.
hmm,
I watch videos on that, and I feel good about it, right? It's yeah, it's
yeah,
not making me money, but that's something I'm passionate about, and I think, and that's why I think your high school and your elementary, all of that is so important because it introduces you to an array of things, and I think in
yeah.
fact be more of it. Um, but but yeah, I think
Now
there.
that you mention it, I feel like hobbies are such an integral part of not feeling lost
Mhm.
and maintaining an identity or building an identity beyond just work. I don't think there's anything wrong with making work your everything. If that's what makes you happy, you do that. But for me personally, when I was a child, my parents have put me in, my mom has sent me to Bharatnatyam classes, which I abandoned. My mother has sent me, has sent me to guitar lessons, which I've abandoned. A lot of things. I used to skate, I used to paint, my mom used to tell me to read like every day, and I would just throw a tantrum and not do it. And then when I grew up and I started reading, I loved it. And every time that, when say work got hectic, my hobby was the first thing I let go of. But maybe that's not the best way to do it. Maybe don't read an entire book, but just read 2 pages. Um, and the reason that I say that I think hobbies can help you not feel lost is back in 2019, I want, no, not 19, 2015-ish, um, when I graduated 12th standard, I got into architecture. I don't know if you know this, but
Fine.
um, you
Parts
know
of
this. Yeah, good. So I was so sure that I wanted to go into architecture. My dad kept telling me that, at least give some other entrance exam, see something else that you want to do. I was like, no, no, I am clear. I want to do architecture. And I got into Bombay's best school. Um, Within 4 months flat,
Mm.
I hated it so much that if I had college next day, today night, I would get extremely high fever. I would be like sweating, perspiring, like my body was physically revolting against
Yep.
going to school. And I felt very lost because I felt like I had let my parents down. I did not have face. I could not say face against my father. Not that he said anything. My parents were incredibly supportive. But I just felt like I let myself down. I felt like I didn't really know how to take decisions. I lost a lot of my confidence in my abilities. And what sort of got me out of it was art. I had an art teacher that, I kid you not, I would go and I would sit in the academy day to night. I would probably paint for 2 hours out of it, or some days not paint at all. But I would go there. It got to a point where sometimes I would take classes for others. I'm not doing my painting, but I'm taking classes for others. Um, and it really helped me get out of that funk and to figure out, okay, this is what I want to do next. And today I can safely say that that gap year was the best thing that could have happened to me. But I wouldn't have gotten through it if I didn't have the art academy to go to. If I didn't, even during COVID, every Sunday, when there was no sense of which day it is, what time it is, especially when you were working from home, because everybody was like, there's nothing else to do, might as well work. I set up this routine on Sundays where I would lock my room, I would put on music, I would now put it on YouTube specifically so that it just understands what I want to listen to and curates the playlist. And I would paint. I would just paint for 2 hours, not more. And it was one of the best like parts of my week. Like I would look forward to it. And again, now when I'm transitioning again, shifting again, I've gotten, one of the things I got as a wedding gift was a whole easel and canvas and paints and stuff. And I'm trying to get back to it. I'm trying to enjoy cooking. I really like feeding people. I think I texted you the other day saying, I have realized that it's not just that, oh, she can cook well. I enjoy hosting. It really gets me very excited, and I will look up 500 recipes and think of 100 other things. I want everything to be perfect, and I don't want to treat it like a chore anymore.
Mhm.
It's a hobby, and I want to dedicate time to it. And you never know what, so many businesses are built out of hobbies. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you're truly interested in, right? And I think
Yeah.
you're right. We don't, one, give enough credit, and two, it's very. I wonder about it too, right? Like I feel like anything, like in terms of arts and crafts that I do, always makes me feel extremely relaxed. And those whatever number of minutes that I do it, I'm not thinking about
Yeah.
anything. And I think that's the biggest struggle, right? In today's life, like I just want minutes where I don't think about
Yeah.
anything. I'm not anxious about anything. That's
Absolutely.
the, like goal
And you
for
don't have to be
anything.
good at it. You don't have to be good at
Oh,
your
yeah,
hobby. That's
sure.
something,
I
that's
think
one of the things that stops a lot of people from picking something up.
probably, but you know what makes me wonder, like with myself, is why do I not do it more often, knowing that it
Yeah.
actually like helps me so much, right?
Yeah.
It's something that you always deprioritize when you have to prioritize something else.
Absolutely.
I actually read something about it recently about how doing anything actively with your hands, with your fingers, like be it cooking or painting or pottery or like actually has a certain kind of effect on your brain, where
Yeah.
makes you feel like really involved in it. So it makes you think that you're doing something that's like important because
Yeah.
your hands are working on it, so you tend to concentrate on it better, and that kind of makes you not think about other things, and it gives you that
Yeah.
rush of dopamine. So I think like there is some science to it for sure,
For
but
sure.
I think prioritizing it is super important, like really
Yeah.
just being like being okay with telling yourself and others that, yeah, this is the time I have every week to paint. Like, I just have it
Yeah.
on my calendar. Like how you block hours for yourself
Yeah.
during the day at work.
Don't, yeah, don't treat something that you enjoy doing with as much importance as, I mean, sorry, treat something you're doing for yourself with as much importance as you do treat doing something for a company or for a person, for another person. I think that it goes back to the point of building with intention, right? You're also building yourself, you're building your personality, you're building who you are as a person.
Mhm.
Like my grandmother, she's what, 80, and now she doesn't, she's 80 plus and she doesn't have the balance and stuff that she used to have, and she used to lead a very active life. But where she has her hobbies on point, she reads, she's a voracious reader. She loves to write poetry. If you come, even if you come to my house and sit down with her for 10 minutes, she'll write down a little couplet for you.
Why didn't you tell
And
me
that's what
before? I'd love to ask you for that.
and she will, and that's how she keeps herself entertained. No amount of money is going to keep her entertained. She's in the house. What are you going to do? So I think that's something the revelation on this podcast right now is something I really would like to focus more on, because I think it'll help me not feel lost and uncertain at all times.
I think that's my biggest takeaway from this podcast
Yeah,
too.
wow, what a eureka moment. I love it.
Yeah, like why are we not prioritizing it as often? We should probably like hold each other
My mom's not going
accountable.
to like to hear this, because she's going to come back and tell me, I told you. I gave you so many chances to
This is the
develop
end
a
number of
hobby.
time. You guys are finding something on your own that I've already told you before.
She is going to be mad, but that's a problem for another time.
Yeah, I think we should block each other's calendars and
Yeah,
send what you painted. But
yeah, for sure. I think you should totally do that. It's a good plan. We will let the listeners know how that goes
yes.
when we succeed.
Okay. I
Okay.
think that was a fun catch up. And
Yeah, I love it. Yep. See you in
see
sometime.